Fuck it, we're starting. Somebody's podcast. Welcome back. We're in the building. Episode 27. I'm here with my right-hand man and my left-hand woman, Mr. Ascend, Mr. Recovery Conscious Mind, Mr. Justin Etling, and our new...
What am I?
What are you? I just call you a doctor. You are a psych NP.
Yes.
We have our newly crowned psych NP in the building.
Mm-hmm.
My bestie,
Mm-hmm.
Miss Nicole White.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back on the podcast. This is going to be a good one. Might get a little weird, but weird is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should definitely put that up front that we are really weird. I'm really weird.
Oh, for sure. All of us are, but there's like levels to this. I think it goes weird, weirder, weirdest, or it could even sometimes you guys go back.
I think she's actually on the weirdest at this point.
I think so too.
She's taking the crown.
So we're gonna get right into it. Let's talk about some stuff. I got you guys here, so let's jump into some things. First and foremost, I want to shout out our sponsors, Rich Print Shop, aka my brothers Nico and Trey, in the building. We are in the All Fantasy Factory, All Construction. My man Andy Erickson. We are here at the All Shop. Come through. The All Shop is lit. You can get T-shirts, detailing. You can get a fucking a doghouse made out of live edge. You could get literally anything you want made over here at All Construction. But we're going to jump right into this. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you for tuning in. If it's your first time here, Somebody's Podcast. We are a recovery-based, lifestyle-based, motivational, whatever the fuck you want to call it. We're here to inspire. We're here to talk to your spirit, to help free you from the confines of a limited belief system and open up your mind to the possibilities of anything. So we're going to jump into a spicy topic. Spicy for some people, not spicy for me, but we're going to talk about God. How you guys feel about that?
I can do that.
I love God.
Yeah. I mean, and I say it's spicy because I think that for a lot of people, they struggle with their understanding of it, what their God concept is. Some people come from a church background. Some people come with the ideas and the concepts of like a punishing God. Some people come from the ideas and the concepts of like a structured religious-based concept of like punishing, rules to follow, all this stuff. But I wasn't brought up on that. My ideas of God has always been like gentle, loving, caring, and forgiving. And I was taught that though. See, that's what was different for me. I was taught differently from my mother, from my grandfather. So my ideas and concepts were instilled in me early on in my life. And therefore I developed a relationship with God that is a huge part of my recovery and my life to this day. But not everybody has that understanding. What was we'll start with either one of you, but like, and I can obviously, this is my shit. You guys know me. I'm the...
As you're talking really quick, keep talking, but I had sent something to your mom this week, actually.
Shout out to my mom.
Yeah, I did. Real quick. I did send it to you. I don't know if you read it, though. So it said, because this reminds me of your mother a lot, it says, your kids are not leaving the church because you didn't train them enough. Your kids are leaving the church because you trained them well enough to develop a sense for truth and justice. You let them read the words of Jesus, and they got it. And they've recognized that the church doesn't seem to be interested in those words. They're not leaving because they don't know the truth. They're leaving because they do.
Well, that's a little spicy.
That is a little spicy, but I'm not even going to lie. I agree with some of that,
I agree with most of it.
Yeah, I came up on a church it's different, man. Even some of the churches, like put it this way, we were in a church basement here up in the New Hampshire area not too long ago, and we were in there for a 12-step fellowship and gathering, a collection of the broken, who should be in the church, and the church was like doing us this like service of allowing us to be in the basement, and then all of a sudden they're asking us to leave because people were smoking on the sidewalk. It's like, that's the stuff. And then like, so we have to leave that church. We can no longer gather there. And like, for me, that's where I start to struggle. Cause it's like, it becomes something different, right? When I think the idea of a church, I think the idea of like a safe haven, like the collecting of the broken and the lost, and like a home from.
You always know who Jesus hung out with.
The broken. Yeah. And we won't jump straight into the Jesus stuff, but we gonna shout out Michelle Smith, my my Jesus homie, because some people you can talk about that stuff with, some people you can't. And I'm not going to try to force feed any type of understanding on anybody, because I believe that everybody is open to their own ideas and concepts. Some people will classify God as energy, universe. Some people will classify a power greater than themselves as a collective energy force.
Well, and even with sorry.
No,
Nicole.
it's okay. You're fine. Some people classify. I actually heard a client years ago when we first opened the treatment center say that the love and the feeling of love and the power of love was their higher power, and I totally got that.
And you could even define that as Christ consciousness. So there are people that believe in Christ consciousness, so that, it is Jesus, but it's his consciousness.
Yeah, in my travels in life at this point, I believe that there is I'll just throw labels out there, whatever. It's just ideas, right? So that there's a council of light, and on that council of light is like Jesus, Buddha, Mother Mary, and it's all religions, and they sit on a council of light.
Well, and there's some other species that live on that council of light too.
For sure, no. And they
really want to get into it? I mean, let's get into it. You know what I mean?
Going here though?
Yeah, we're going here. Why not?
Let's go everywhere.
I mean, is it that hard to believe that there's beings, and we shouldn't even call them aliens. We should call them higher consciousness beings. They have been, in this universe for not thousands of years, for millions of years. So they've been evolving their consciousness, which means that they're just higher consciousness beings like Jesus, but they potentially are different races.
Yeah. So to the best of my knowledge or experiences at this point, the Council of Light has a huge investment in Earth at this point. And
they do.
And you can call it God, you can call it whatever you want, but the truth of the matter is, even if you don't, I definitely can, while we're talking about this, think of a couple people that are I just don't believe in God. And I get all that, but maybe buy into the idea that there's a much greater force that is around us that is I don't want to label it God, but I don't even know how to say that.
And so when most people say they don't believe in God, it's because they've been taught about a God that they don't like.
Yeah, no.
I mean, that
man in the sky.
Man in the sky, judgmental man in the sky who's here to punish you.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say that Jesus didn't teach that, so why are people believing in that? It's very interesting that Jesus was the Son of God, so he was spreading God's word, yet he didn't subscribe to those beliefs.
So, I mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or whatever. Some of my ideas around what happens is that people want to hold, let's just talk about religion. They want to put God here and be a servant to God, but while doing so, their ego and fear get so enmeshed in that then they create rules and all these boundaries to what that actually means.
For sure.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because if you look at the Old Testament is where the punishing God came from, and the Ten Commandments and these concepts thousands of years ago when civilizations were wiping out other civilizations, I actually see the value. I just think that if you really look at the universe and you look at all things, the only thing that is, it's ever changing, right? It's ever evolving. And so to me, to believe in one thing that never evolves, I think is a mistake. You're not giving credit to God and the universe that he deserves and respects. So I don't even want to say he, because to me, it can be feminine energy, it can be male energy. It's both. It is energy. But in that energy, there's consciousness. It holds intelligence.
It does. And so something else to also add into that, and I started to notice this, I think I've always kind of known this. We'll always hear the older generations talk about the younger generations and how much they're ruining everything, right? We always hear that. But the truth is, we're just evolving. That generation is now evolving. So we evolve as a collective. So if we could just trust sometimes that the younger generations have more knowledge and that they're coming in fresh from our higher consciousness, which is the truth, they're not messing anything up. They're expanding us. They're breaking down limits and boundaries. That's what we're not messing it up.
Yeah. So what is your ideas and understandings of what is, essentially, if someone was to come to either one of the two of you and ask you about God, or what is God to you, or what is your description, or how would you Well, I mean, and I know that you guys have evolved in like your beliefs, and you guys do a ton of work. So if anybody feels overwhelmed by this conversation, understand that you're getting information now from people that have been dedicated and devoted to an evolution of self, right? Which means like going deep and suffering forward and exposing inner truths and doing like serious meditation and like really
breaking down.
and breaking down. Yeah, no, for sure. And like doing all this stuff. So like within that becomes all these new awarenesses, right? So and a new exposure. And Justin always talked about like go within or go without, and the God that lives within us, and like getting reconnected into the God consciousness that's inside of us. And I'm in the same mindset of that. I call it the God GPS or my spiritual intuition. It's the light that lives inside of us that's always been there, that's always been guiding us, that we get disconnected from due to the narratives created from the thought function what happens through the exposure of like being here, being on earth. You know what I mean? Like we're constantly going around collecting all this data and information, whether it's true, whether it's false. And when we're not in a place of like being conscious of like or being like dedicated to like doing work and putting in work, we can develop narratives without even knowing that these narratives are being developed. It could happen in childhood. It could happen through a relationship. It could happen through falling into a case of depression, anxiety, and all this stuff. And like the subconscious mind, which I say this all the time, but it's just true, doesn't decipher between what's fact and fiction. It just takes the information that we feed into the brain, and it just interprets it and brings it into the external world, which is our reality. We're the creators of our reality. But when we're in a position of like truly doing work, we're in a constant state of like heightened awareness, whether that be through meditation, whether that be through dialogue with human beings, constantly being in an area of self-reflection, being articulate in our honesty, and like not being afraid of what our current truth is, having the understanding that it's not who we are, it's just where we are in this moment. So we're free to just like expose what's happening in our mind in this current moment, and through that is the revealing of like some awarenesses of like what's going on. And within that work, all these new exposures happen, right? And these new understandings, and we can get reconnected to the internal God that's inside of us. That kind of leads. Perfect. All right, we're back. We had to fix Justin's microphone. He had a little bit of muffling, but I was right in the middle of talking about the internal connection, the God connection inside of us, and how we can become disconnected from that what I was saying, the spiritual intuition, the God GPS that I call it, through like the collection of all this other stuff that we pick up. And when we're in a space of like not doing work on ourselves and not sorting through the clutter to get to the clarity with people, with meditation, with deep breath works, with whatever it is that helps us get back into connection with that, we become disconnected, which means we no longer trust within that, which means like for the greatest examples that I give people, it's like when you're sitting still in a relationship that your intuition has told you that this has been over for a very long time, but your head's been telling you like, sit still, you're fine, you're good, it could work, stuff like that. You've already known the answers well before that. Or you walk into a room and you know that you're not supposed to be there. Your intuition is saying, get the fuck out of here. Yet your head tells you you're fine. You're just being paranoid. And then something happens. Or when you're going to hang out with someone that you feel like couldn't be trusted, and then your head's telling you all this stuff. We have all these collections of this, the intuition showing up. Or you've been told internally like you should do this, and you've had people tell you like maybe you shouldn't do it, but you trusted in that feeling that you should take this risk and do this, and it turned out to be true against like the logical mind of other people telling you that this doesn't seem possible, because people that get trapped into the logical mind usually aren't tapped in completely into that God conscious, because a lot of the times when we're following that spiritual intuition, we seem crazy to people, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And the development of everything that we've ever done has been following into that intuition, right? Just trusting in that wholeheartedly, when logically to the outside world.
I would even go as far to say, like, when we are operating from that God place inside of us, like our God consciousness, we've also been attacked heavily from people.
Oh, for sure.
Because we look crazy, and people want us to think we're crazy.
And you may even stop and contemplate, am I crazy?
I know.
And that's the thing, and that's why it's, for me, having that relationship and having people that are also in that in in that space of like working and developing that relationship internally with that part of themselves, it's important for me to be around, because it's very easy to fall right back into that space, just like a lot of people are, where like, oh, maybe I am crazy, maybe I shouldn't do this,
right.
maybe they are right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the ego defending itself. The ego is scared to die, and so it's threatened by other people who are living in consciousness, because the opposite of, the ego, and you were talking about bad things that happen to people, but it's even good things. As we just start to experience this lifetime, our ego defines who we are, what we got going on, and it doesn't even need to be a bad thing. It's just like, oh, now I'm Justin and I'm a treatment center owner. And it starts to define us, when the truth is, yes, those are physical realities, but we're here to understand ourselves.
Yeah. Yep. And I would even take it a step further to say that, in addition to, it's not even childhood trauma, it's human trauma. So like,
Sure.
We had this conversation a little bit on the radio show the other day, where each soul comes here with their own karma to clear. And so as you're going through life, and I think we all know this and we've talked about this, but this is very real, as you see yourself going through the same lessons over and over again, when you're not paying attention is when life gets even harder, and that can go on for a whole lifetime. But then when you are paying attention and you start clearing out your karmic debts, I guess we'll call it, that's when you start to have your breakthroughs, in my experience. Like Ram Dass talks a lot about that. And it's more so, it's not about like childhood trauma. It's about like human trauma. Like you can't avoid it. You have to go through it. It's part of being a human.
And so that's part of like so when it comes to like the Bible and religion and stuff like that, I don't there's parts of it, like, I'm not like, oh, I take the Bible in the literal sense. There's some things that I do like about the story narratives, and Jordan Peterson touches on this a lot. But what I love about it is the idea of like, in all the different stories, there's a call to action. And from that call to action, you're met with suffering. And through that suffering, you find meaning. And through the meaning, you find a deeper relationship with yourself and with the universe and with God, and these things that you were looking for inside of yourself, which for me is ultimately like what life is, right? And so we get so, as human beings, we get into this safe space, the ego, stuff like that. We start to be more open to those narratives that have to do with a lot of the people that sit in the logical mind, like safe, easy, comforting, not scary, like the least amount of risk as possible. But for me, when I'm truly in touch, like and you guys are similar. It's like God calls you into, you're just kind of being guided, and you're met with like resistance through like life and things that are out of your control.
Sometimes we even resist, and in that resistance, it's so chaotic. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But having that blind faith, right? Faith, walk by faith, not by sight, without being, because and I say this to you and you'll say this to me, and it's not for us to ever understand in the current moment. It's for us to trust in the process and have like a deep, strong belief, for me, in the universe, or for me, it's God, that this is going to serve me. And you talk about this, even the bad things, it's going to serve me. And how, I can't get fixated on the how. It's like, I just have to have faith that ultimately it is what is required for whatever is to come, in preparation for whatever is to come. And when I live in that space, life becomes so much easier for me. And like my data that I've collected through life up until this point has told me, trust in that 100%, 1000%, because every time that I've come through the other side and I've been changed. And like, so, and I always go back to Jordan Peterson, because he's one of my favorites right now in this current moment, but he always talks about like suffering for something, right? It's like suffering is inevitable. Well, I mean, we try to live in the state of like always being happy, but that's not a realistic state. Like, we're never going to always be happy. It's good to be in pursuit of that, but it's also good to have an open mind to prepare yourself that when suffering does happen, to not curl up in a ball and lay in a victim mentality and just be defeated.
Yeah. And it's so important, because like in the last 6 months of my life, like I have had to get comfortable with being in so much pain at different points. And even though I'm in so much pain and it's so chaotic, like I've learned on a very deep level that my painful days are just as valid and necessary as my good days. And I genuinely know that to be true. So when the timeline's longer is when I avoid the pain, when I avoid and try to act like I'm not that if there's another part of myself, whether it's our inner child, subconscious, all those things, when that like little girl inside of me is screaming to be nurtured, you know, I in my spiritual path, I no longer have the tools to kind of shut her up. And so I like to say that because I think sometimes people can think being on the spiritual path means every day is a good day, and it's probably a 50-50 split.
I'd agree with you. I'd even say that, heat molds. So how are mountains made? Through extreme pressure and heat that form into these beautiful creations. This is literally what is happening for us. And you can when you start to rise your consciousness, you can tune into this and understand that through this extreme mold and heat. For me, when you talk about having faith, I deeply believe in having faith. But at this point, I'm even trying to have the universe or my higher self. You talked about your higher self, your inner self. And I do believe I'm my own guru, and I'm here to learn. Like when I leave this planet, I'm facing myself. And I'm going to have to face myself. And did I learn the lessons I was supposed to? And so it's very interesting because now the reason that I meditate, the reason that I get into meditative states and I work on rising my consciousness is because quicker and quicker I get in touch with my higher self, and he starts to give me some understanding of what's going on. Even when I'm in the difficult times, sometimes it's fascinating. Like I literally can be in the middle of the molding and it'll give me some intuitions about what the molding's about. And I'm like, okay, no problem. So I'm not suffering here because I understand what's going on. And so there was one point in time, now I'm just like every day, authenticity, if it's an eruption, that's God working. Do you know what I mean? Like a mountain, like a volcano is beautiful. You know what I mean? So that if you are a volcano one day and you can authentically just be a volcano and not be like, this is bad, that is death,
Which we
this
all
is
know
wrong.
I've been a volcano.
We're all
of us.
volcanoes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We all have volcano, we all have beauty, and this is like God is all that is. It's everything. And when we can appreciate that and tune into that, we start to tune into, for me, the higher self tunes me into our oneness because my higher self is connected to your higher self, which is connected to your higher self, which is connected to the universe, to all sentient beings, to all planets, to all universes. When you start to go with that broad stroke, forget about it. If you start to study the universe, it is so unbelievable how large it is.
Within our lifetime, science is going to back up everything we're talking about right now.
1,000,000%. They already are. So it's going there.
No, it is.
And it's exciting to me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like excited by it. And you talked about, I was watching a show the other night. Our ego is formed through the default mode network. We have like this thinking in us that's the default mode network, and that's where the ego is formed. But they've proven that through states of meditation and through like music and other sound frequencies, you can quiet the default mode network. And when you do that, your brain operates on a different frequency.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're getting in touch with your spiritual self, and your spiritual self doesn't suffer from your mind and body. So we have this physical experience here, and the suffering is actually caused by us being so attached to our thoughts and our feelings.
Yeah.
And we're attached to good feelings, but we're also attached to bad feelings, And so when we can, Eckhart Tolle talks about becoming the observer, and you becoming the observer is you're getting in touch with your higher self. But then you look at quantum physics and they talk about the observer effect, and what you're looking for, it will return. And so you're completely correct that science is starting to back up the spiritual realm. It's fascinating. It's beautiful to me. And it's so important that we understand that there is, and really every religious text and every spiritual text pretty much out there tells us that there is a realm beyond this one, that we live beyond, right? but none of us actually believe that. It's like they tell you that, but that requires that you actually believe it. That means that like you have a spirit, it has intelligence in it,
Yeah.
right? That it actually carries intelligence. It's not this like energy form that's just like poof. It's your consciousness. Your consciousness is a part of your spirit. It's a part of your higher self. It carries all your soul's truths, right? And when someone leaves their earth, their consciousness is still here. You can contact it in deep breath works like we talked about. You can contact it in different ways, but it's in the quiet that we contact it beyond the analytical mind. And so, you know, we're talking about spirituality a little bit here, but this is all God to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's all God, and it gives me strength and power.
Yeah, no, and I think that, like, I know for me, I came to this lifetime to definitely, I feel like, don't fall because I'll have to laugh.
That's a broken chair, my bad. All three of these chairs are broken, but
That's all right.
fuck it.
It fits us well. Where was I going? Oh, I know that I came to this lifetime to, like, what we're going to see in mental health and with all of this stuff is going to be like knock everyone's socks off. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, two things for what you were just saying, and that's I was taught from a young age God is everything or he's nothing. And so I always chose to believe that God is within everything. So therefore, there is no box that I would like to put God in, you know, and I know a lot of people like to do that with the basis of whatever their belief system are, the structure of their belief system, but mine is just expanding, which gives me this, I'm open to, there's so much information that it's like we're spiritual fucking robbers. We just go into every spiritual fucking book of it. We just take it from, and people limit themselves to
the
like,
point.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Because, I mean, where do we get out? Do you get your information from one place,
I mean,
Justin?
we're not living in...
Absolutely
No.
not.
Yeah,
Do you,
no.
Nicole? It's
No.
like every week we come, it's like every time I talk to the two of you, especially, you have new shit that you're bringing into the dynamic. There's always new shit. It's like you guys go, it's like hunter-gatherers, like out there hunting spiritual truths and come back and gather it and bring it and share it. It's like, yeah, but Justin will learn it on a Monday and he'll be teaching it in group by that fucking Friday. You know what I mean? And then we'll be talking about it on the podcast by the following week. But I love that because it always, even the stuff that, because you two have been on another level of shit, which I love, it challenges anything that can challenge my mind into opening up, because it's all about the expansion of like our belief, because the limited belief system is what inhibited me initially even from ever staying clean, right? So and that was just in like the scale of like recovery as a whole. So when I started the process of expanding my belief system into something more than it was, because essentially that's how my sickness, my disease kept me from ultimately staying clean long term, because my narrative that I lived true to, my loop that I was stuck in was like, I never could, whatever. I was a felon. I had no education. I had all these things against me. So therefore the type of life that I could live was this, you know, and it sold that to me and I bought into it. Therefore I lived true within that. Therefore I could never truly stay clean under those circumstances, because there was no development of a life worth living. Ultimately I traded one shit life with drugs for another shit life without drugs. And ultimately what it was a shit life that I thought that I was destined to forever. And so coming into the halls early on for me, it was the expansion of that belief system, and people like Justin, who's an integral part in my recovery process fucking 17 years ago, and other men which were like, no, that's not true. That's not true. And me having the faith in those times to believe, even though I couldn't logically understand, how could that not be true? And like that was the first experience of it. And then going from that, it's the expanding of that. So it didn't just stop there with me not thinking like, oh, there's this more of a life that I could live. Oh, I could do this. And like, it's ultimately now all things. It's opening up. I always say it's changing the peanut-sized ideas of what my life could become to the possibilities of anything. And that's when now it was like kaboom, right? And then when you start to buy into that, it's almost at some points overwhelming, because you're like, you want to, especially the Aquarius traits, we're like, we want to be everywhere and do everything. It's like we start to change the narrative, and you start to, and I tell people all the time, and they look at me like I'm fucking crazy, that the inner dialogue, the inner observer, or the inner narrative that we have with ourselves, that dialogue from the way we talk to ourselves when we first begin this journey fucking changes. And like people look at me like, what? like that, like, oh, I can't. Or every time I'd have a good idea, it tells me like, no, you can't, or you won't be able to, or like that voice changes to the point where sometimes it's almost too arrogant where I need to simmer it down. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of things that my dialogue will be like, oh, you can't do that now. There's things I have insecurities still, but in the areas of like, what could life become for me? That has changed, and that for me early on was the understanding of expanding the mind and the limited belief system, walking through faith, not by sight, trusting in something bigger than myself. Whether in the beginning it was a collective of people that believed in me when I didn't have the capabilities of believing in myself, the power and connection, and then like continuous like dialogue around the truths that I classified as true, which were being shattered by other people who were in return giving me back a different narrative for me to begin to buy into, which was the actual truth, not what I developed as a truth, which was that you could actually, you can change. Not only can you change, can you heal, you can begin the process of the development of a life worth living. And when you take that in just the aspect of, okay, in recovery and life, now you use that in spiritual realm, which is, this is where you guys are, like you can go. I mean, Justin, you introduced myself to deep breath works, and you've been bringing a lot of meditation into a lot of people's lives, and Nicole, the same thing. Like Nicole, you just spoke to an individual the other day that was channeling people from past. Like you guys are like expanded your minds and expand like your spiritual connections and your connection with God and with this universe is like fucking blown open at this point, you know.
100%.
And I want to share it with the world.
Well, that's the world we're living in today. So let me just say that we are living in the age of Aquarius, the rising of human consciousness. We are not denying anymore that these things exist. They exist, and you don't have to have fear about believing in them. All your strength lies in the unlimited, powerful universe that you are a piece of.
Mm-hmm.
And
this information already lives inside everyone.
Oh, it does. And so that's why it resonates with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's like I listen to channelers and I listen to all these people that can, someone could say, oh my God, that's craziness. What's a channeler? They're channeling a consciousness being that isn't in physical form. That is, who knows what it, you know what I mean? It could be a alien species or a higher consciousness being. I hate to say that, but it's coming.
Yeah, no,
it's coming because it's going to blow the doors off of this, because once the Pentagon's starting to release information about UFOs visiting here. Once that they completely confirm this, it proves that we're not the only sentient beings in this universe, and all science is going to start to get challenged, because if aliens are here, they can travel faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, and I even, in my experiences thus far, like I guess, why am I being reserved?
I don't know.
Do you want me to be? I feel
like this is the next thing coming. We're going to talk about it now, and then 6 months from now, the White House is going to be releasing stuff about this. So that's why I'm not reserved about it, because to me, it ties in, and it ties in.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Because it all makes sense. It's not like, oh my God, what are you talking about? It's like,
It's just like when we're talking about our higher self, right? Like it. Yes. So we have a higher self that is very real in a different dimension, that is happy, all these things. And they're like our cheerleader, and they're rooting us on, right? And they're giving us clues and hints, and they come through emotion. They come through signs. They come through all these things. But when we pass, I guess we reunite with them, whatever it is. Like, I guess the context I'm trying to give is like, at the end of life, you're going to know this all to be true. And like, we literally have a higher self that is cheering us on all the time.
I agree with you. On top of that, back to Sam Harris.
Because we came to this dimension to just have fun. That's it. We wanted to have fun in this dimension, to experience ourselves like in this physical form.
Exactly. And if you want to know that concept a little better, watch Disney's The Soul.
Oh, facts.
So as they move through spiritual dimensions, it's funny because they're like, there's like all these hamburgers, and they're like, oh, we can't taste in this dimension. Yeah. So because he picks up a like, oh, I want a hamburger. Oh, you can't. That doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Because it's so blissful already, you don't even need to taste.
Because in physical form, of course, you know what I mean? In physical form that exists, but you go into just a consciousness being that isn't in physical form, and guess what? You can't taste anymore.
So Disney,
everything's in visualization. Oh, Disney's tuned in.
So listen, yes, and Disney is there. So what happens us as a collective, right? So you can pick most movies, right? And I don't want to use dark stuff as a point of reference, but I'm going to. Like, even with the Twin Towers, right? There was a movie that came out a couple of years before that, right? So my point in this is that even with Soul, even with Moana, and clearing out ancestral pain and all that stuff, the other one,
Avatar, there's a million of them.
The
Shack.
Disney is infamous for dropping clues for what we actually experience a couple years later. Like, factually, I know this to be true.
Well, because your imagination is real. So you're actually, people's imaginations are actually tuning in to God consciousness. Yes. And so they're releasing a movie that are concepts that are real. It's not like... Did you
watch Soul yet?
It's like,
no.
Watch the Jetsons, and everything that was in the Jetsons is in reality today. And so when someone was doing that, they were just tapping into a timeline in the future. And some people are like, what are you talking about? But it's not that hard to think about.
No, it's not. And so with Soul, let's talk about the part in Soul with the guy this is the higher self, right? What I'm describing to you right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy dancing on the corner?
Yeah. So he, in his meditative state, right? Which, like, even when you guys do like your artwork or dance, right? You and your brothers dance, you go into a meditative state when you're dancing, like that. You're expressing your art. So in the movie, they have this guy, and his job is to spin a pizza box. Is that what he's doing?
I think he's like I don't know what he is.
No, he's like, his job is to stand on a sidewalk, and it's either a sign or I think it's a sign. And he's like, almost like borderline break dancing, but he just continuously spins and spins and spins. But in order to do that and keep himself in that place, he's meditating. And so part of the movie is that while he's doing that, the movie then takes you up to his higher self, and his higher self's just like hanging out, and and so the point is that when you're expressing your art or the things that make you feel alive, you're in tune with God and your higher self.
So good. Let's elaborate on that. Yeah. So someone that struggles with an idea or a concept of God, or struggles with the idea, how do they strengthen, or where do they start? Like, how do we get to a place where you guys are right now? You know, where does that start? Like, how did you arrive at this point? I mean, for me, I can just say, like, my relationship was strengthened through not through the happy times, through trusting in during the dark times, and having, and being, and it wasn't even in the moments, or it was actually looking back, right? Looking back and seeing the presence of something greater than myself, and the meticulous placement of people, places, and things that carried me through moments and tests that brought me to ultimately the testimony well after, like, to look back in hindsight, right? And for me, that's when I was like, wow, it gave me a conviction in my belief system of something greater, like my relationship with God, which was looking back. And that ultimately opened me up to more. It strengthened my belief system. But for me, my experience began with the teachings of, once again, my mother. Not everybody has that. So how do we get someone that walks in and their experience, their whole life has been, I don't know, maybe they didn't have like really good teachers or parents, or parents that didn't instill in this, or maybe their experience was like a church that was taught like, oh, they're going to pretty much go to hell for all the sins that they've already fucking contributed to. Or how does someone get to this place of where ultimately where we're at right now, with an expanded mind and idea of God, and in a relationship of trying to live in this place of love, right? And forgiveness, because ultimately I was taught that the closest that you can get to God is to forgive another human being. It's stronger than love, which for me was like, wow, holy shit, you know, like even the idea of like thinking about that, because I remember thinking I wanted to challenge that, but it's easy to love someone. For me, I mean, I love people with open. It's very, I want that, but it's being hurt and then being able to forgive someone. Truly, that is a hard concept. And if you think the idea of God, and we're all connected, and we're all put here on this earth with human frailty, and we're destined to make bad decisions and to fuck up and to all this, and the idea of like that no matter what, continue to get up and learn your lessons, and there are no mistakes. There's these moments that we're required to learn in order to arrive at the places that we're trying to go. So ultimately what we're doing is we're collecting data to implement sometime in the future, but we don't understand that in real time. So forgiveness is required.
So, but even with forgiveness, I think that forgiveness sometimes is taught as something outside of you. I forgive you. You actually do your own healing. Forgiveness is actually an act of self-healing where you heal the piece of you that they're triggering. Do you know what I mean? Because it goes back to the premise of what would Jesus do? Jesus would never catch a resentment against anybody because he understood them.
Well, somebody can't trigger something that's not already yours to heal.
Exactly. And so it's interesting because forgiveness requires self-healing in ways. And we've almost been taught this outside-in concept of everything that we do. So you know what I mean? Like, I forgive you. I give you water. I do, like, you know what I mean? And I do believe that the spiritual realm is like an inside-out process where anytime for me today, it's like when I forgive somebody, it's because I've healed the piece of myself that they're triggering. And so I can come to understand them. It's like the experience you had in Deep Breathworks where you saw your father from a different light. And so when you can see something from a different dimension, a different light, you know, however you want to see it, because Jesus he could never resent anybody because he understood people's pain. It's like the shack. I mean, it goes back to the shack. And so really for me, it's like it all becomes a reflective self-healing. And any time that I'm suffering, like today, I had a situation where I got triggered and it's my own stuff. It's my own healing that I needed to do. I actually went to Deep Breathworks today and I moved some energy of I'm not worth it. I'm not good enough. You know what I mean? I was left, and like I've talked about it till I'm blue in the face, but there was still some energy there because I had to move it today, which I did. So for me, I think that there's this concept that like spirituality is like, we've almost been taught everything in a linear way. You know what I mean? Where it's like, here's the path, even a concept of a path. Awakening doesn't require a path. Awakening is almost like a melting. It's like a letting go in ways for me. I do believe today that people are waking up and like their life becomes their spirituality, because the more that they wake up to their power of who they are, and that's why these young people are so powerful.
Yeah,
like
and it's also why they are so. We all know. I mean, we all three of us have woke children. At least one of our children is woke. They're coming in woke, awakened. But also the flip side to that is that we also have a lot of kids who are hurting, but they're hurting because they don't understand the spiritual experience that they're having. Yep. It's really that simple.
And so what do we do for them? I think that we come to let them understand themselves better, let them know that, like, if you're experiencing pain, extreme pain, it's because you're being called to clear that out now. And do you know what I mean? Because anytime that we're in suffering, believe it or not, it's the universe telling us, it's like our higher selves trying to talk to us, like, hey, here's an indication you have a lesson to learn here. And by us denying the lesson and wanting to point a finger, you know what I mean? It's like you might say something that triggered me and I want to create a story about what's wrong with you. When the truth is, I have healing to do from my own triggers. You know what I mean? And it's so easy. We've almost developed this system where it's so easy to like point at others. What's wrong with them? And it's always about us. It's always about our journey. It's always about our healing. And when you can awaken to this, you're like, oh man, it like gives everything that's happening in your life meaning and purpose. And it creates neuroplasticity in your brain, because everything happening in your brain, because you're constantly learning and changing and growing, which science has proven creates contentment and like fulfillment, which is what we're desiring. We're desiring contentment and fulfillment. So it's happening right now for you. Everything that you need in your life, literally, even if it's the most difficult thing you've ever experienced, it's in service to you, believe it or not.
No.
So what is it's still like someone looking for a relationship or an understanding or strengthening or like what is the path?
So in my experience, and I've thought of this so many different times, because if I look back on my own path, there were times, aside from get my journey in 12-step and getting clean, and when I really started to commit to, no, not even commit, explore to whatever road I've been on, there was still this idea that all of my healing, I had to search for a place to heal. I had to search for the right person that was going to tell me the right information. I had to read the right book. And if I didn't read that book, I had to, even you guys have always listened to so many different people, right? And I'm like, oh, I got to listen to that one. And like I digested a ton of information. But that's not, I did that and it's valid. I don't want to devalue all that stuff, but the truth at this point is that it's as simple as just paying attention to yourself. And I guess when I say that, like if I'm thinking about a kid, right? Like, cause if we're going to put this in the context to reach everybody, right? Because we could be talking right now, we don't know who's listening. There could be a 15-year-old that never had any parents. Maybe they were homeless. Maybe maybe who knows, right? They came into this world and they never had any guidance. They never had any love. Sometimes when, like, I think about that person and how we're talking, like it still might, or not even how we're talking. What I would like to say is just like, healing is available to everyone, no matter your circumstance. God is available to everyone, no matter your circumstance. And like, I think we can all, like, I know for me, I can attest to the fact that, listen, and I say this with all the love I have, like my parents were not present a lot throughout my life. And I love them still. And we had this conversation on the radio show, and I just really want to hammer this home. We're taught that if we don't have the right parents, that we're forever broken, we're forever injured, we're forever damaged. But like, that's not always the truth. Like, we can find healing without any of those things. And so even just to say okay, I'm in pain, I'm digesting all this information, it sounds good, but I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I think it's important for people to know that, like, you could watch this podcast and then for 5 minutes sit quietly after, or maybe go for a run or listen to music and just allow yourself to digest the information, because this information we're providing to people is a gift to yourself, right? And so when you can watch information, whether it's us or other podcasts, and get out of kind of like your ego battle, well, I agree with this, but I don't agree with that, or yeah, I could see that, but not this, like just allowing the information to come in. I think that those are really easy ways to start to get in touch with yourself and give yourself a gift, right? Because how many times has God showed up in our life and we just dismiss it? How many times is God trying to get our attention and we just dismiss it? When the truth is, like, we're allowed to give ourselves those gifts. And so I guess I say that because I think it's important for people to know you can find God no matter where you are. And no matter where you're at in your life.
No, I agree. My thing is if you don't know of God or know God, find someone or something to show you God, and it's easily accessible and it's around us all the time, and it's in the form of like humanity. It's in the form of like unconditional love. You're
the one who taught me early on when we 12-step and all that stuff, and you taught me that God communicates through people.
Yeah. And through music, through people, through,
some
sometimes
more than others. I heard a guy say in a meeting, God communicates through people, some more than others.
Yeah.
So it's like, you gotta, you are who you hang out with. You're like a big believer in this.
Yeah.
For sure. But it was instilled through other people, through me. And I believe we're all vessels, right? And sometimes we're vessels to give, sometimes we're vessels to receive.
Yeah.
And then within that, we're here to share our experience in the teachings and stuff. And it's all in, when you're open, you're being delivered messaging from, you call it source, I call it God. I always say God calls, I answer, or whatever. But For me, it's very easy to find God. For me, I can go on YouTube and find God. I can find myself in tears within 10 minutes just by watching simple videos of like someone rescuing an animal, or a musician that took the time out of their day to sing to a child who's in the hospital, who's dying from cancer, and it'll move me. Or it'll be like the act of kindness, and you can see that. You can see it in basic humanity, people being pure in the essence of love. And you see God within that. And because you become disconnected, right? Because this world is full of a collective of all good, bad. There's so much within the world, and we can become emaciated in all of it, and we can sometimes lose ourselves. And I find myself getting lost often, and my way of reconnecting is sometimes I don't have access to people because I'm in a state of isolation, right? And sometimes what I have is my phone. And sometimes maybe it's the music that begins my process of reconnecting. I'll put on a song that triggers something inside of me internally. Maybe it makes me think of my father. Maybe it makes me think of something that springs emotion in me internally. And maybe that leads me into watching a video. And I watch like this beautiful video of like somebody doing this amazing act of kindness or something, and it moves the emotion, and now the emotion is starting to come up, and now it's starting to free me from the confines of whatever the fuck I collected, the negative energy or whatever that's got me in a state of suppression. And it's always around us, right? And it's whether we have the lens of where we're opening our eyes up to see it, because we will see through the lens of whatever it is that we've set for a narrative internally, right? And that's why it's so important for us to like stay connected and continue to be a part of this, to have these different acts that can always recenter ourselves, to reconnect with that part of ourselves internally. And for me, it's like if someone that doesn't know, whenever I sponsored someone or was helping someone that didn't have a strong belief in God, or maybe they were an atheist, I would never try to challenge their beliefs or anything. I would just show them my beliefs through loving them unconditionally and not allowing them to think that they could scare me away through, because they people want to test you when you say like, it doesn't matter what you tell me or what you do. Like I don't care. Just continue to tell me the truth. Right. And I've always been that type of sponsor, that type of friend. You're not going to shock me by what your experience is. That's how me and you connected, Nicole, through our common, like, we were the fucked up kids in NA at that time and shit like that. And through our experience of just like, oh, we're both fucked up. Let's have a conversation of how fucked up we are. And we accepted each other. And it's through like that unconditional acceptance of people and continuing to love people where they're at, not trying to get them to be where you want them to be. That's why I always tell everybody you're never obligated to be anything other than what you actually are in this moment. That's it. And sometimes it's just you're just not all right in the moment. And to allow someone to be not all right in the moment and to love them anyway. It's like every time you call me, Nicole, and you say you feel like you're gonna break, I say fucking break.
I know.
Break.
I know.
Break all the way. I break. I've been fucking
and I did the
out
other
of my
day,
mind for like
I was like, okay, you want me to fucking break? Oh,
yeah.
And I did. I yeah.
That's sometimes where we're at. That and all three of us have fallen. We've all gone through our processes and our journeys, and here we all still sit with each other, And I've been struggling for the past fucking month and a half, like going through my process of anybody that's on any type of medications. This is a little quick fucking snippet, and sure the doctor can chime in. Never just jump off fucking.
A medication.
Yeah.
SSRI.
An SSRI, like out of nowhere. So I just decided like, hey, I'm in a good space now. I don't no longer need Lexapro. And I just decided without the consultation of my prescriber and anybody else that I was just going to stop all medication and just go about my life. I had a good deep breath work session, and I was like, I'm in a good space. My life ain't crazy like it was 2 years prior when I got on this. And so I just jumped off, and next thing you know, it's like I'm a week into it. I haven't told anybody. My right eye's twitching. I have light sensitivity. I have like this morbid sense like around me, and I'm like telling Nicole, she's like, what are you doing different or whatever? I'm like, oh, I got off all my medication. She's like, you did a taper? I was like, no. She's like, what? Kid, you're supposed to do a tape. What do you? I didn't know, and I'm like, So that's been my little journey. And then I was trying to do whatever, trying to play doctor to myself, and that never goes well. So, and I've been in a funk with that whole shit, trying to get my shit together with that. But and you guys have loved. I mean, fucking, I've been out of my mind. You guys have all known that. You guys are having company meetings, and I can't even be a part of them because I'm fucking. I don't know whether I'm coming or going or fucking. I'm walking around with a fucking a camera. I'm a cameraman now. I'm fucking. I lost my shit, and people love me unconditional. My wife, shout out to my wife, who's just, she allows me to be fucking tapped. Sometimes we're just not okay, and the beauty in that is that it didn't matter to you guys. You're like,
yes, that's I was just gonna say that. Like we really do a good job at loving each other despite everything. And it's amazing.
Well, and that's one teaching that we have to let go of like this competition of being good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like this life is all about a big competition of who's doing the best.
Yeah.
And it's such a load of shit, to be honest. Spirituality, it's the quote I gave you. Spirituality is authenticity. So if you're authentically being yourself, you're connected to God. Do you know what I mean? So if that means you're angry and you openly can express your anger, you know what I mean?
It's when we suppress it. That's
it's when
the
you
problem.
suppress it. So when you're suppressing emotions, you are like, the way that I was watching something the other day, and they were saying when you're in suppression, you're sucking energy in, right? You're sucking energy in.
Tolle calls it the pain body.
The pain body, but you're sucking energy in and you're suppressing, and then you're getting heavy. You're actually becoming more of a physical being. You're like you're
denser.
You're becoming denser. Exactly. You're becoming denser. But as you can express out, so when you're just angry because you're angry, you're actually expressing the feelings out and you're vibrating out. You're letting them go. And as you let them go, you start to go higher in the vibrations. And all of a sudden you're feeling love and you're feeling joy because you let go of that anger. But we live in a society, it teaches us suppress that, suppress all pain. And as a result, we are suffering as a human race.
Yeah.
We are being taught, to be honest, to suffer as a human race, deny our spiritual well-being, and the gig's up. The gig's up. We're not buying into that lie anymore. We are in a time of human ascension where we are going to stop suppressing. We are going to authentically be ourselves. We are going to work more as a community. One of the greatest teachings that I love is the forest. So if you study the forest, we have so much to learn from the forest. It's amazing. You have a tree who is in the sun and it's getting all the sun, or multiple trees in the sun. You have multiple trees in the shade. The trees in the sun automatically send water to the trees in the shade. Mm-hmm. The trees in the shade automatically send the trees in the sun nutrients. Or I had that backwards, I think. But you understand what I'm saying.
So the trees take care of each other.
They work in a symbiotic relationship where they give in, you know what I mean? If they have enough, they give. If they need, they receive. They ask for what they need and they get. And so like as a society, we have a lot to learn from the trees, because what we do is give me all the water, give me all the sun. You know what I mean? I want all the sun, and I don't care about any of the other trees. You know what I mean? Let me just get my little pack. I got three family members here, and so I got my 3 little trees, and we're in survival, where we're just trying to survive ourselves. So let's hoard our water. Let's hoard our light. You know what I mean? Let's hoard the nutrients. And as a result of that, we are suffering. When if we tapped into all the other trees, all of a sudden we're working as a collective and the suffering goes away. So for me, this is where we're going. We're going into let's get out of these old systems of competition, of competitiveness, and we've all been taught it, is the truth of the matter. And for me, my spiritual journey is been like unlearning everything I thought to be true. Like literally,
that's actually very accurate.
Like everything that I've learned, I'm just like, nope, dude, nope, 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 ego, and it's okay because the ego's there to protect you. So the ego actually is trying to help you survive, but in ways it's actually imprisoning you. This is the problem. So we've learned these beliefs.
What's that quote that we said? The mind is what is
the
that?
intuitive mind is a sacred gift. The practical mind is a I'll get it.
Yeah, get that, because that's a really good quote. Well, he gets that, yeah.
That's an incredibly quote, and I know we got to wrap up here in a sec.
Yeah.
But no, this is a science quote. Just to be clear, this is not from a.
My chair's sinking.
I don't know what's going on with your chair.
My chair's fucking. It's all right. We're gonna finish this with me down here. We're gonna end this with Justin's quote.
Here it is.
In a little wrap up.
The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientists of all times. Okay, so this is coming from science.
Wait, isn't that?
Yeah, my man Albert right there.
Yeah.
Albert right there. So what does that mean? That means we're living too much in a left brain society and we're not getting in touch with our intuitive selves where all the power lives. And so, hopefully as you give people permission to authentically be themselves, they start to tap into their intuitive self. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not like such I got to conform,
Yeah. Well, I wanna thank you guys for being. Thank Nicole. Justin's always on the podcast. For being on the podcast.
No, I'm gonna start coming more. We're gonna, because I feel like you
guys got a dope chemistry. Like you could tell you're on the radio show together.
Yeah.
So maybe I have to start coming on the radio.
I would
show.
love. I've been dying. I stopped asking. I just figured when
you guys
were
did it
ready.
on a Wednesday. I run group on Wednesdays.
I know.
You guys scheduled it for the one fucking day I couldn't do it. So that's not me.
No, I get it.
I mean, we can figure that out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You can show up to group 10 minutes late.
Yeah, because we start at 10.
Yeah.
Before we end, I just want to congratulate Eric L on a year clean. He started watching this podcast, when we first released it, and he's become a friend of mine. I connected with him on Ascend, and he celebrated a year clean like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Congratulations. Anybody else that got that celebrated sometime?
Not that. I'm sure there is. Michelle V's so good at that part.
Eric's just cool because he's a random dude from Utah who found our podcast, and it's helped him in his process.
So is it okay that we say, like, if you also want more content too, we have the radio show on the Process Recovery Center page too. There's videos and stuff on there too. Yeah,
check out the Process Recovery Center radio show on the Facebook page. It's the Process Recovery Center Facebook page. Yeah, and we're gonna be putting out more content. If you want any specific topics for us to talk about, just put it in the comments.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that shit. Nicole's going to be a reoccurring guest. We might even do a secondary spinoff to SomeBuddies. We're going to start getting more content. We're getting our shit together.
I'd like to do like a overall, I don't want to call it substance use. I don't want to call it mental health, but I'd like to do like a segue just focused on that stuff for people too.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So,
do you guys have T-shirts that
comment,
people can buy?
subscribe. Yes, we got T-shirts. That's what we're sponsored by, the biggest T-shirt company in all of New Hampshire, Rich Print Shop.
So you guys should put up a link for people to be able to order T-shirts.
We'll put up a link. The link will be in the wherever the fuck Nico puts links. Shout out to our producer Nico on the ones and twos always. Again, shout out to All Construction, my man Andy Erickson, and this amazing they call it the All Fantasy Factory. What this place is, I'll give you a quick little description of this place. This place is just like a spot for people to come and be creative. It's a construction site, construction company that employs all guys that are in recovery, and it's also a space where we have people come here and create. They make stuff. They make furniture. It's just like another beautiful space. This place, as well as Rise Barbershop, which is people in a process of an evolution of self change. Right? They call us the castaways, with the stigma of like what people think that people like myself and Nicole and Justin are, but they are so misinformed with that. We have beautiful spirits that are actually, I sometimes think that we have sometimes an upper hand because we're kind of thrown into this this rapid development of spiritual self. We're introduced to a collective and a connection component that puts us in this journey of like a spiritual evolution. So I'm actually grateful for my seat that I sit in and for the people that I've met on this journey. And if you're also on this journey with us, you should be excited for what is to come. And despite of what the narratives are that you are suffering from internally, it all changes. And the thing is to have faith. And we are what the fuck do you call that? Showing somebody what this is, because we all started off this process exactly where you are, with the same narratives and the same internal struggles, and yet here we sit, and we're far from perfect, but we're in a process, and we're fucking doctors over here, me and Justin on fucking
nurse practitioner.
It's a doctor to me.
I don't know.
It's a doctor,
I
nurse
like being
practitioner.
a nurse.
Yeah, you can prescribe meds. So
You
you're a
get to
doctor.
fucking doctor.
But I like being a nurse.
So
And I want people to know, and I know you guys say people reach out to you, but like I want people to know that like we're not just sitting here on a podcast talking at you. Like if you are struggling, like reach out. I don't care if you're halfway across the world. Like we'll try our best to find you help.
Oh,
near
absolutely.
yeah, download
Absolutely.
the Send video if you can, because we're all on there. You can message us. We have meetings on there. We have, we can intimately get to know each other, which
Yeah.
I have with Eric,
Yeah.
a random guy from Utah who's like a good friend of mine now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So one last thing, I want to give credit to All Construction. You were talking about God, and you've created a creative space where men can, like, through a construction company, which you wouldn't associate construction with God.
Yeah.
But it is here because you've created a creative space where people can authentically be themselves and create through construction. So God expresses himself everywhere.
Yeah.
Through everything. And, you created that, which is beautiful. This is an amazing place. So thank you guys at All Construction.
Yeah.
And we out. Peace.